What's up, Heat Nation? Welcome back to the Team to Beat Miami Heat podcast, as well as the Miami Heat Zone podcast. My name is Amir. For today's episode, we have a special guest joining us. We have Matt. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing well. How about yourself? Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. Excited to chat with you. We both follow you on Twitter. We see you're really active there, and you have a lot of good thoughts and perspectives around this Miami Heat team. So, wanted to have a conversation with you today, talking about the current outlook of this team. I know it's been a frustrating season. It's hard to give up on this team, and I'm still giving him the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know why. I might be delusional, but this team has just been so frustrating, and we keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And we've had the ability to control our own destiny for the past month or so, it seems like. But specifically in the last week and a half, losing to, I think, the Sixers was what we thought was the biggest and most disappointing loss, but then it was the Pacers, and then again against Dallas. So we're 44 and 36, eighth seed, but we are somehow not eliminated from being a potential top six seed, even though I'm sure all of us here believe we're destined to be in the play-in. And we even have a chance to be in the fifth seed, right? So I know there's all these different permutations. And I know you know them, Max. You tweeted about this specifically. So do you want to remind the audience how it's even possible that this Heat team could avoid the play-in?
I'll be honest, full disclosure, before today, I didn't know it was until the NBA communications Twitter page tweeted out like all the different teams who like which seeds they were eligible for. I didn't know the Heat were eligible for the fifth seed.
I didn't either. I thought I was just sixth.
So did I. But if the Heat went out, if the Magic lose out, they play the Sixers and the Bucks, the final two games. The Pacers lose out, they play the Cavaliers and the Hawks. And if the Sixers, obviously the Sixers beating the Magic is one of them. But if they also lose to the Nets on Sunday, the Heat would get the fifth seed because it would create a four-way tiebreaker. And the Heat, again, somehow would win that tiebreaker. But for the sixth seed, if the Heat went out, the Magic lose out, and the Sixers lose on Sunday, they would just be the sixth seed because if the Pacers go at least 1-1 over these final two games, again, they're facing the Cavs and then the Hawks, who are kind of locked into that 9-10 spot. I really don't think they're trying to win games. They're beat up right now. Jalen Johnson's going to be out for the next 3 weeks. Onyeka Okongwu's injured. Trae Young's coming back, but I don't know how they're going to integrate him. They're going to be they would be above Miami in that scenario. So Miami would be the sixth. If the Pacers were to go 1-1 or 2-0 over that stretch. Again, I don't think this team's going to make it out of the play-in. I'll be completely honest, especially what we've seen over the last couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. I just don't think it's reasonable. I mean, they still could easily beat. They should beat Toronto over these final two games, but who knows how many guys are going to rest on Friday? Who knows how many guys are going to rest on Sunday when most of this may not even matter anymore. So I'm guessing they win those final two games. They're going to need a lot of help if they want to get the sixth seed. They're going to need even more help if they want to get the 5 seed. But I don't really know. I really don't think that's a possibility, at least in my brain. It's not. If they do, great. If they don't, just tell me who and when they're playing next week, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, you mentioned the word rest. No one better be resting on this team except for Duncan Robinson, because he, as our third, maybe arguably our third best player, like most important player on this team, because he's been one of the least injured until of late, has put this team on his back essentially, and we weigh way too much. And so poor Duncan is out again with no time frame for a return, which is unfortunate. But we better not rest anybody. I am sorry. I don't care. Like, I'm sorry, Bam. You've been carrying, this team on your shoulder as well, both offensively and defensively specifically. But we can't afford it. We can't afford it. And I know Toronto is trying to lose. There are going to be more no-name players, I'm assuming, in these last two games than the Memphis Grizzly game when we lost to them, which was probably the most ridiculous loss, right? Because they had no Bane, they had no Clark, they had no Morant, they had no one except for Triple J, and we all know that Bam dominates Triple J in that matchup. So, yeah, man, I don't think we can afford it, dude. And Toronto needs their pick. They need to lose these. They need to tank these games. So, yeah. I mean, all the other permutations, all the other things that you said, I don't I don't see the Magic losing back to back to the Bucks because I don't think Giannis is going to play, and I think they might shut down everybody because they could, in theory, lock in their second seed if the Knicks lose or if the Cavs lose. There's so many different variations because there is going to be movement between potentially 2 through 5. But yeah, I don't know, Martel. What are your thoughts on this? Like I know
So,
we're all
question, Matt.
here, so yeah, hop in.
Since you say that this Miami Heat team, doesn't have another run in, is it? Who's to blame? Is it going to be more or less our core, or is it going to be like the front office? Because I think that the front office, yeah, they made marginal moves, but I just don't think they put high level role players around Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler. But then also you can also blame the core guys because they really didn't play that much outside of Bam and Adebayo. Like I know that a lot of people, say playoff Jimmy, but to be honest, I think that's actually a gift and a curse because there's no other superstar that's in the league. You don't ever hear playoff LeBron, playoff Luka, playoff anything. You see what I'm saying? We're the only franchise where our star player doesn't really play that much of the regular season. And then even when he does play, it looks like he's not trying, but then we're also paying him $50 million. But then we also want to point fingers at the front office. So since you say that we don't have another run in us, which we might not, Jimmy Butler's getting older, and who knows if we should even give him an extension, which that could be like another question for later. But who's really to blame here, the front office, or is it going to be our core main guys in Jimmy, Bam, or Tyler?
I think it's all of the above. Like I've been critical of the asset management and how this front office has operated at certain points in the past. I do think they have made a conceded effort to improve this team. But sometimes the Miami Heat, just because like they're not an athletic team, they're not a big team. They have such a small margin for error with their roster construction, and so you still need your best players to be your best players. Like you still need. It's hard for me to criticize Bam more so than Jimmy because Bam is tasked to do really everything.
Too much, way too much.
Right. Like it feels like he gets worn down because of how much he's tasked to do. So it's hard for me to blame him in that spot, but like Jimmy, like you still need Jimmy Butler to be Jimmy Butler. Like we talk about so much about playoff Jimmy and getting into the playoffs. Well, you still need to get into the playoffs. Like,
yep.
You still need to win those games. And like, for example, the game against the Wizards, those games against the Sixers, the Pacers game, them blowing second half leads to the Thunder and the Magic the Thunder and Mavericks after the All-Star break. Like those are games that you can win. And like you need your best guys. I don't know if they were active for all those games, but like you still need your best guys to be your best guys. Like you can't there can't be like a fluctuation in effort on a night-to-night basis, especially late in the season. And like I tweeted about it the other day, Jimmy Butler's stats in the clutch are so much worse this year than they were last year, and that's a problem. And it's just like you can tell the energy barometers for him. Mm-hmm. The steals, getting to the free throw line, like it's just not there, or at least not to the degree that it was last year. And he was an incredibly efficient player last year in the second half of the season, and that's kind of the trend that we've seen. I mean, I know in 22 it wasn't that good as well, but like throughout his Heat tenure, we've seen him like, okay, like the calendar meme, like he turns it up in the second half of the season. We really haven't seen that at all this year. And I remember I've been on record before saying that like, okay, yeah, in November and December when he came out a little flat, it's like, okay, if he's playing like this in March and April, then it's time to be concerned. I'm not concerned about it right now. Well, now guess what? It's April 11th, and it's like we're still talking about this, and that's a problem.
Yep, it is a problem.
I haven't been in love. I mean, like, I don't think it's been a good year for Spo, if I'm being completely honest. Like, not even – I'm not going to blame him for the rotations because it's like they've had nearly 40 starting lineups. That's a problem. Like, that's an injury thing. I feel like a lot of the testing with the lineups and the lineups that he's just throwing out there, he's just trying to throw a crap at a wall and hope it sticks. Like that's just kind of where he's been at the entire season. But there's been no rhythm to like what they're doing. Like the offensive process, I think, has been a really big struggle, especially late in games. Like it's too many ISO possessions, too many post ups, not enough player movement, not enough ball movement. Like all of that's a problem. And I think a part of that is to the integration and reintegration of players because there's been so many players that have been hurt. But I think it's a philosophical thing, and it's been that way for the last couple of seasons, and that's a problem. And so I think there's a lot of blame to go around. I think it's not just one thing. I think it can be a lot of things. I think it can be the front office to some extent, even though I did think they could have handled the Dame situation a little bit better. Like they could have had a plan B or a plan C, and they could have pivoted off that once they knew they didn't have a chance. That there's blame to go around there. There's blame to go around.
I totally agree. I totally agree, because think about it. How are you gonna not get not even a phone call back for Joe Cronin?
Right.
For pretty much half the whole offseason, and you don't have a plan A, B, C, D. Like, there was plenty of role players, high quality role players to put around our best players. I honestly, I don't think we really needed Dame. I just always thought we needed better high quality role players. We have never had a 4 or a decent 5 since Kelly Olynyk in the bubble. That comes down to roster construction.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And then also, too, we don't hold Jimmy Butler accountable for bringing Kyle Lowry over here. Because Kyle Lowry actually set us back. That's $90 million that could have been spread out throughout our roster. Am I wrong?
No, you're right on it. And I feel like at the time with Kyle Lowry, considering Jimmy was the de facto point guard and it took a toll on him in 21, I think having Kyle Lowry at that point was okay, you have a 1 to 2 year window there with that. And so
but he never held Kyle Lowry accountable.
Right.
That's your boy. He's over here beefing with Pat about getting in shape, and this is basketball. Why are we talking about getting in shape about basketball? And, bro, I go to war with people all the time. Kyle Lowry came over here with a bad attitude. And to be honest, I thought they were very lenient compared to all the Miami Heat stories we've ever heard. They were very lenient with him, and he never delivered on his return. I don't care that he had, 1 or 2 months left. We didn't win the championship.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And to be honest, it ultimately didn't work. Most of it was because of his attitude, out of shape and overweight. Why do you think he's getting lower body injuries? He's not tearing anything. He's out of shape and overweight.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So now, if you're saying that Jimmy Butler probably doesn't have another run in him, what do we do with him going forward? Because do we give him the contract extension? Because you saw what Drew Holiday signed for.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people, and there's a lot of people on Heat Twitter that actually want to pay Jimmy Butler. If he's not playing, he played 57 games so far. I would say out of the 50, maybe 30, he probably actually tried. You see what I'm saying?
I was gonna say, I've talked about this with just different people at different points of the season. The amount of game, you could probably count on 2 hands the amount of games that Jimmy Butler's actually been your best player in that game.
It's sick.
That's a problem. Again, when you're in this type of way, maybe it's fine the 4th game of the season.
Yeah.
When you're in game 75 and it's becoming a problem, and that you're still talking about it, that's where it's again, we talk about playoff Jimmy. We talk about Jimmy Butler turning it up at this time of year. You still need to be the best version of yourself, or at least a really good version, in order to make the playoffs. You still have to. You can't rely on Terry Rozier to get you 25, 30 points every night. You can't rely on all of these guys to do all these different things and you still not be the best version of yourself. I feel like this postseason might be the first time we see Jimmy. Again, depending on how far they make it in the postseason, I have no idea. But this might be the first postseason where we see him defer to Terry a little bit more when he's back and healthy, where he defers to Tyler a little bit more. But if the Heat go as Jimmy Butler goes, you're not going to go very far if Jimmy Butler's not the 1A version of him. It's just not feasible. There's too many good teams out there, and you're the 8 seed. You just can't.
But you could also blame the front office, because they know
you can blame everybody
because they know how Jimmy operates. You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
they've allowed him to do what he's doing. You see what I'm saying? They've allowed it. And listen, Jimmy Butler has been phenomenal. He picked up this team out of the mud. However, if you know he's not going to play the regular season seriously, you got to put the proper players around Jimmy, Bam, and Tyler, because Tyler and Bam cannot carry this ragtag crew. They can't.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They cannot carry. This team is not talented enough. We don't have the size, the athleticism. We can't just grit and grind our way. And don't get me wrong, I think that we've done a great job, grinding our way to try to win a championship. But as you see, when you get to that main stage, when you get to that big stage, the talent will just outwork you.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because not only do they have talent, but they're also gritting and grinding. The Nuggets, they're nothing to play with.
Yeah. And again, I put a little bit of blame on Spo here, and I don't know if this is all Spo or if this is all the rest of the coaching staff or what, but we're still in the year in 2024, and the Miami Heat can barely crack 100 points.
That comes down to personnel too sometimes, because Jimmy and Bam,
no, it does. It does.
They're not the best scorers. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
like with Flo, they don't score easy by any means. You see what I'm saying? Bam just started shooting threes. Jimmy just started shooting threes like that again. So, with injuries, bad personnel. Don't get me wrong. I do like guys like Caleb Martin and all those guys. You know what I'm saying? Like Haywood Heisman. They'll win you games here and there, but you cannot count on them every single night. Like Luka, Giannis, Shea, all these guys across the NBA, Tatum, Brown. Yeah, we beat them, but they score effortlessly. You see what I'm saying? They're putting up 25 points like it's nothing. Us, on the other hand, and that's what you need, because we can't just say, well, you know what, Jimmy, you got to get to the line 10 times tonight. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's just in this day and age, with our best two players being really good two-way players, which is beneficial to us, which helps us be a top 10 defense in every year we've had Jimmy in this build in the past 5 years. I feel like we've been a top 10 defense every time. We're like top 5 now, number 4, I think, or 5. And the key has always been defense that has kept us afloat. But then the thing that's detracted us the most is offense. Like, offensive rating has been bottom 10 all year. We are a bottom 3 scoring team. You mentioned 100 points, which is a benchmark that all teams should easily be able to score in today's day and age. I know the way that refs are reffing the game now, which I like personally a little bit better, a little more contact, because I feel like the game got insanely soft. You could see, though, before that, though, people were getting to the line frequently. 3-point shot, obviously, like that's the appetite for every NBA team except for the Miami Heat for some reason, right? We shoot mostly in the mid-range, which is not, the best shot according to analytics these days, but
they can't get to the rim.
Yeah, we can't get to the rim either. Like, we get to the rim the least amount of time. We can't protect the rim either on the defensive end, which is also an issue. But either way, we're Anthony Chang, Miami Herald, said we have scored 100 or under 100 points 18 times this season, and the only teams that have done that more than us were like the Grizzlies and like the Wizards and another bottom feeder
Charlotte
team. Charlotte, exactly. Thank you. And our defense has been carrying us, and we're just simply not good enough offensively, because we typically should have 3 20-point scorers on this roster, but 2 of them always miss 20 to 30 games, sometimes even more. So, right, if Hero and Jimmy are going to be injured all the time, we can't rely on Bam, like, who's obviously been improving his game, right? Like, to that mid-range. Now he's spraying the floor at the 3-point range above the break, which is huge. But to Martel's point, we need elite scorers. We don't need a Luka type scorer, but like, we don't have that Devin Booker type scorer. We don't even have that Steph. Like, what we get upset about with Jimmy Butler, we use the age excuse, but look at Curry, look at KD, look at like those players who are even older. They're more elite, obviously, 3-level scorers than Jimmy Butler, but like, they're older than Jimmy, and they've dealt with injuries, especially KD. Like, Jimmy's never had a major injury in his career where he can look back on and be like, oh, like he's tore his ACL or an Achilles or anything like that. Like, he's always just consistently missed 10 to 20 games or 25 games. So it's frustrating because we can't rely on these 2 guys as our best guys, because they can't carry us offensively, because Tyler Hero as our third scoring option is always hurt. And so I miss having an elite scorer like a Dwayne Wade, obviously a LeBron James, like on this team that can actually carry this team when we have these droughts. So I think offensively is the biggest thing. Let me ask you this, Matt, because we've been talking about who's to blame. Jimmy Butler every year turns it up, usually after the All-Star break, and recently the All-Star break has been past the midpoint season. It's more of like the 65%, whatever, 70% point in the season. He had a saying again this season, it's time. Like, and even external players like Josh Hart recently said, hey, Jimmy's done with his side missions, like, look for him to wake up. And Jimmy did, though, before the All-Star break. like he had his week where he upped his averages, which he typically does in the month of March and April, where he was scoring like 26 points per game again for that first week. And then Tyler, of course, gets hurt in that Pelicans game. And then it goes back down to like the 20-point range. But even further, he had a bunch of games where he's only scoring 13, 12, 15, 17. He went on a stint where from March 13th to like April 1st, he didn't have a 20-point game. So what do you think it is, though? Like, why is he not being aggressive? Like, does he have a secret injury? Is it because he's almost 35 and it's like the age thing? Like, why is he being less effective, less aggressive? Even though he said himself personally, it's time. There's a commercial. It's playoff Jimmy. I'm different. Like, how do you shoot 8 shots against the Mavs yesterday when it is another must-win game? Like, if we won that game, like, we would have had a really good shot actually at being the 60s still somehow, right? With help. But can you guys explain it to me? Like, why is he so passive when he's saying it's time to go?
I want to address the commercial thing really quick. That reeks of the stupidly locked in quote from 2021
before the Bucks.
And that's where it's like, I wish I didn't see that. I wish that didn't come. Again, like Jimmy, I mean, it's advertisements. He's a professional athlete. Players do that and stuff like that. But I don't know. I feel like you don't need to, like, he's been so dismissive of the playoff Jimmy thing forever. And now it's like, I feel like I've seen it 2 or 3 different times this year where he's come out with quotes just referencing playoff Jimmy. And that just doesn't feel like a good sign. That's just like a side tangent. Maybe I'm being a little bit too pessimistic with that, but it just reeks of 2021. Anyway, it might be due to injury. Because, I mean, he suffered the ankle injury last year. I think he had like a calf injury at one point this year. He had a foot injury. Like, he's had a lot of different injuries over the last calendar year where I think, like, yeah, he's 34 years old. He has, 30,000 combined minutes under his belt. Like, I think there's a wear and tear aspect to it where that accumulates over time. But even then, like, I don't even know what it is. Like, I don't know if it's a mental thing. Like, I know he's had some personal issues, or not personal issues. Like, he's been out a couple games with personal reasons. I hope everything's okay. And I hope it's nothing too serious. Like, I always want to try to keep the human aspect of it in that realm. Cause it's like, you never know what someone's going through. So I hope that's not the reason why he isn't playing super well right now. But again, it's been like an entire season thing. I don't know if whatever is happening in his personal life's gone through an entire season, but I just want to keep that in mind. Like, it's probably a combination of things. It's probably not just one thing, but I think injuries have something to do with it. Again, I just don't think like there's no intention like with him on the floor. Again, like, he's not getting as many steals. He's not hunting the passing lanes enough. I think right now, you've seen over the last couple of weeks, he's more frustrated with the refs over the last 2 or 3 weeks than he has been in 5 years with Miami. Like, he's usually been a guy where it's like, yeah, he's been a physical player, but like, he's not usually barking at the refs every other play. That's happening now. And I think the rule changes have something to do with that. I think he's kind of in his own head with that stuff because it's like, I think he's trying too hard to draw fouls. And I think he's not concentrating on like finishing when you're around the rim. And I think he's just like in his own head a little bit. And he's, again, like, we see it on a night-to-night basis where he's getting matchups on him. Like the Sixers game last week, he had Kyle Lowry on him, and he's just not taking to the basket. He's passing out of open looks. Like, you can shoot over him, dude. You're a half foot taller than him. Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know if I don't have the answers because it's like I'm not him, and so it's like I can say all these different things. It could be something completely different. I have no idea what it is, but it's a problem. And again, like, I haven't seen anything this year to suggest that he's going to flip a switch in a couple of days or in a week from now. Like, I don't. And maybe I'm wrong. I hope he laughs in our faces because I hope he gets 30, 35 points, whatever it is in a playing game or in a playoff series. But I haven't seen anything this year to suggest that happening like I did last year. And it could be, again, it's probably a combination of things. I think part of it's due to injury. Who knows if it's something personal going on behind the scenes that we don't know about? Who knows if he might just be declining. Like, this father time is undefeated. So who the heck knows with this stuff? But I don't think his process has been flowing well. I don't think the energy's been there for him. And again, when you have to remind people that playoff Jimmy's going to turn up in a couple of weeks after being dismissive of it for 4 years, I don't know if that's a good sign. Like, I really don't. Again, maybe I'm being pessimistic. I have no idea. It could be something that I didn't mention. It's truly beyond me. But again, this team's margin for error is so unbelievably small with how it is. If Jimmy Butler's not Jimmy Butler in a playoff series or in a postseason game, in a play-in game, the Heat are going to be out like that. Like
it's over. I agree.
Over. Like there's no chance.
No chance. And I mean, all the things that you said resonates. Like the Thibs minutes, like running him into the ground in his first 6 years with the Bulls.
Yeah, but that was kind of overhyped though. That was kind of overhyped because he didn't play that much. And then also remember, because the whole personal issues, that is huge. However, he had a month off of basketball. Remember, he took 2 weeks off, and then he went into the All-Star break. Remember, we want to, just to talk strictly basketball, he's had a lot of time off, especially this season. And even with the Miami Heat, yeah, he's had injuries, but besides the playoffs, he really missed, half the regular season? Like, when you really sit and think about it, like when you combine games missed and then also with him kind of half-assing it in the games, he's really only playing, maybe 50, maybe 50 games, maybe.
He's reached 60, I think, once in his Heat tenure.
Okay, then. So he's missed a lot of basketball. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, he had a lot of playoff minutes, but you can honestly compensate that with, that could have been used for the regular season as well. But with Tyler Hero being so young, what do we do with him going forward as well? Do you keep him? I know that he's young and he looks great out there sometimes, but especially with the whole injury where it's like that lower body injury was kind of dangerous because he was dealing with that since his rookie year, which is very concerning. So what do we do with Tyler Hero going forward as well?
I honestly think this is his last year in Miami. And it's not like I don't have anything. Like, I think Pat gives 4 to 5 years of a build before he kind of begins to change direction a little bit. I think Tyler would be the first to go among those three. And so that's where it's like, I think this is his last year in Miami. I don't know what he gets traded for. I think if you trade him, you get 70 cents on the dollar, 60 cents on the dollar. Like, I don't think you're going to get the full value. Like, they had that quote last offseason where they said they wouldn't trade him for anyone but a top 75 player. Well, I think we're past that, or at least I think they should be past that. Like, I think I don't even like he's a worse asset than he was last offseason. And he wasn't even viewed as a highly valued asset then. So I don't know what changes that now. And so I think you trade Tyler Hero for complementary pieces that help fill the margins a little bit elsewhere. But that's where I think they go. Again, that's just a gut reaction.
Yep.
Who knows what? Like, I've seen people like, trade him for LeBron or trade him for like whatever. It's like, you're not going to get a superstar caliber player for Tyler Hero now. Like, that's just those days are gone. Like, that's not. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just not. I don't see that happening at all. I think you get more complementary pieces. You get more draft assets, whether it's first round picks, second round picks in future years. I think you get 60 to 70 cents on the dollar, if that. Honestly.
Did you say you can get a first pick for him, though? Do you think we could get because, like,
yes, we were supposed to this offseason. The Nets and the Spurs, they were at least going to give up 1 to 2 first-round picks, which that's what he's worth. He's not trash. He's a good young player. The problem is he's just never on the floor.
That's the problem. Yeah.
And then his defense, with his efficiency on offense, it's really not worth it. You know what I'm saying? It's like he's trying to play like Devin Booker, but he just does not give us the offense of Devin Booker. Is Devin Booker the greatest defender? No, but his offense outweighs his lack of defense. You see what I'm saying? So I just think, he is a very good young player. It's just that with the lack of defense, the inefficiency, and then also not really being available at his young age, those are very big concerns. And then, what do you think about help for Bam Adebayo? Because the whole backup 5 thing, besides Kevin Love, because Kevin Love has been great, at his age, but in terms of like the 4, who is an ideal 4 that we can realistically get, going in? Because Bam Adebayo needs help. He'll never complain. But what they have that man doing out there, having to not only guard 1 through 5, cover for everybody, rebound,
it's crazy,
defend, and then go on the other end and then drop 25 is crazy to me.
Well, it's not even just drop 25. It's screening for everybody. It's freeing up everybody.
Screening everything.
Like
doing
all
everything.
of that stuff, you add all of that together, and then you're asking him to get 20 to 25 a game. Like it's an impossible task with what he does every single year. And
Pat came out and said it himself that Max, Duncan, and Tyler, oh, bam, half they check. So why aren't you fixing? Why aren't you fixing that? If you see that flaw, you called it out that 3 people can't score without your center. Why aren't we fixing that?
I mean, I think that's part of the reason why they got Terry.
Yeah,
because it's like, I mean, again, there's been some. It's been hit and miss, but I think the Terry Bam 2-man game has worked somewhat. I don't know I don't have like the synergy numbers in front of me. What their points per possession are per action that they run, but like, I think he provides more of a scoring threat to open things up for Bam, and he's also a decent playmaker. But like again, you need more than that. You need more guys who can set your second best player up. You need to involve him more in the offense to where like he's putting in position. He's being put in position to succeed more. Like him flowing to the rim more. Like I think part of the reason like they get him in these actions and they post him up 10, 15 feet from the basket, and now he's forced to take in contested midi with 7 seconds left on the shot clock. And it's just like, that's not conducive offense for him. Like if you get him more in the action, if you get him more flowing downhill, if you get him more involved at the rim, and like part of that may be a self-creation thing from him, but like I think you can still get him involved in those actions. And so it's like, I don't know, maybe I want them to get him, I want them to set him up more and like put him in better position to succeed. But to answer your question about like guys next to him, like the backup 5 thing's been a problem ever since he started. I don't know if again, it's hard for me to trust them to willingly replace that unless it's through the draft. Thomas Bryant had like a cool 3 weeks against bad teams late in the season.
Yeah,
I don't think that's enough. Kevin Love's been their best backup 5 this year. He's been one of the best backup 5s this season for anyone, which is surprising. I think like the ideal guy that you want next to him is like a Dorian Finney-Smith, like a 3-and-D guy who's switchable.
Kyle Kuzma.
Maybe a Kyle Kuzma. Like I'm still curious about like Kyle Kuzma in a winning context, like how he translates, but I think he's a lot more improved than he was when he was in LA. So I think that there, in theory, that could work. But like someone of that kind of ilk, I think would help Bam out a lot, especially with the switchability thing. Like I think you can rely on a Dorian Finney-Smith to switch a lot more than you have in previous like Miami Heat 4s outside of like a PJ Tucker. Like I think they were at their best when they had a guy like that from just a schematic perspective. And so that's where I kind of lean with that. I don't know if Dorian Finney-Smith's like an attainable option. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. I mean, they were rumored for him at the deadline. I don't know what his contract situation looks like next year. I don't remember that off the top of my head. I don't know what kind of assets they would part to get him, most importantly, because like, again, you have to, in these new cap rules, like you got to fit 110% into that. I don't know what that would be. So maybe that would be a 2-team deal, 3-team deal, whatever. But like someone of that 3-and-D ilk, I think would fit best next to Bam. Maybe not Dorian Finney-Smith, maybe someone else, but just someone of that.
They wanted 2 first-round picks. That was what they were asking for, which they didn't get. I think he was making in like the $13-15 million range, and
I want to say it's around there.
Yeah, we were. I mean, obviously we're in the first apron, so we weren't able to do that unless we obviously sent out like a Duncan Robinson or someone. In theory, we're not going to ever give them 2 first-round picks. But don't you think though, the size thing is the biggest issue? Martell keeps talking about that in the past as well. So it's like, don't we already have kind of that small 4 that like we've always used next to Bam, like the Haywood, like the Caleb, like the Jaime at the beginning of the year? Like it hasn't really worked. And I know Spo loves small ball like Steve Kerr, but like Steve Kerr at least like had Kevon Looney and had other bigs that were serviceable, but like they had Steph Curry, like they had Klay Thompson, the 2 best shooters on earth. Like they were able to win it, and we haven't been able to win it with this strategy. So I like the idea of Finney-Smith. We talked about that in past episodes, but I don't know, man. I feel like we're always last, like almost we're bottom 3 in rebounding too. Like rebounding has been a huge issue and a reason why we lose a lot of games too, outside of our horrendous offense. So I don't know. There was a guy we talked about, like a guy who busted our ass yesterday, or whenever that game was. Too. Was it yesterday, the Dallas game? Gafford. Like I thought that would be a good person, or even the PJ. Like those two guys specifically were two guys I thought could fit next to Bam. But last question for me, like, what are your thoughts though of like shifting Bam because now he's shooting the three more? Could he be the stretch four and put a Gafford next to him, someone that's a better player than a Deadman, a Thomas Bryant? Like we've been unfortunate with these
Yeah.
vet minimum guys. Like, can't we get a guy and pay him like 15 mil? Like that would have to mean we would have to move a Terry or a Tyler, obviously, because both are going to be making 30 and 28 million or whatever that is. And to Martel's point, getting better role players, but specifically, do you think Bam could hypothetically move to a four and get a more Daniel Gafford type of guy who plays in the low post on the block? Or do you think Bam should still be that five and we find either that Finney Smith that you mentioned or a Kelly O or a Kuzma or a bigger, 6'10" power forward who could stretch the floor? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm kind of in between on it, if I'm being completely honest. Like, I know you like a direct answer, but like, I have, just to go on like the size thing, I have been a very big proponent of getting size. Like, this team needs more functional size, and they haven't found enough functional size the last 5 years. Again, size matters in this league, and I don't think, like, yeah. I mean, I think they're a better rebounding team, but that relies on smaller guys boxing out. It relies on you have to be a little bit more physical. This specific team, I don't think has been as physical as past Heat teams defensively and on the glass, which is a little bit of a problem, which is a big problem if you're not big and if you're not athletic. Like, you can make up for that stuff if you're big and you're athletic. The Heat aren't either, for the most part. And so that's a problem. Like a guy who I was talking about a lot pre-deadline was like a Nick Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Like a guy who's, again, 7 foot. He doesn't even have to be your starting big. Like, I don't think Spo at this point, like, he's never really been a coach that wants that big four next to Bam or that big five, like outside of like Myers Leonard. Like, that's been like the one guy, maybe Kelly O too. Yep. Those have been like the couple of guys that Spo started that's like above like 6'7", 6'8". Like, I don't think, like, if you're not going to have a guy next to Bam starting who is big, just have enough functional size coming off the bench. Like, I don't think that's too big of an ask. And again, they haven't really found it. Like Orlando Robinson, who's like 6'10", 6'11", is the biggest guy on their roster. Like, again, and he's your third big. That's, again, like, it's not enough functional size that Miami had. Like, they haven't had it. And that's where it's just like, I think that's one of their biggest needs. I don't know if that's something you address in the draft. I don't know if that's something you address in that has to be something you address in free agency at minimum, but they haven't really addressed it at all, or at least not well enough. In regard to shifting Bam, like, I've gone back and forth with it. I think at some point he's probably going to have to shift over because, again, there's so much wear and tear that has accumulated on his body from being a 5 at 6'9". Over time with what he's been tasked to do. I think at some point that's going to take a toll on him. It hasn't happened
crazy.
Yet, but
it's
like
crazy.
There's a lot of physical toll on that body of Bam Adebayo at such a young age.
They don't realize that, man. Running him into the ground.
Right.
You see,
you
guys talking about Tibbs. You guys talking about Stiff. Look at what they're doing to Bam.
Right.
Running him into the ground.
And so that's where it's like, at some point I feel like a guy like Lauri Markkanen would be a good fit. Like a guy, again, who can stretch, like Bam can stretch the floor. At least we've seen flashes of it. But a guy who can consistently stretch the floor, like some of that skill set with that size. He's 6'10", 6'11".
Don't we have that though? We're not. I mean, I guess we're kind of forgetting. We have that European on our team who's got functional size. Who's
listen, that can be the answer. That can be the answer.
Jovic,
but that's the future. You see what
that's
I'm
the future.
Right.
He's inconsistent. You could see he hasn't even played more than, I think, 65, 70 games combined from last season. He played 15. He's played whatever, like 45, 50 now this year. He hasn't even got a full 82 under his belt. Like, so of course he's going to be consistently inconsistent. He had his second best game, or if not his best game of his career against the Hawks, right? And then he follows it up with like one of his worst games ever, right? So it's like that happens. Like you could see that same thing with Jaime Jaquez. Like when you're a rookie and you're young, you're like we can't rely on him. To your point, we're in this championship build. It's great that he's cracked our rotation. It's great that we're starting him as our 4 right now, but it's not leading to victories. Like same with Tyler Hero. Like great, Tyler can score 20. He could win the 6th man a year, but it's about fit. And Bam and Jimmy, Bam and Jimmy, offensively, don't seem like the best fit to carry us, especially in the regular season. And that's why we needed some sort of third option, like a Lauri Markkanen, to your point, or a Donovan Mitchell, or even a Whale. Like, of course, like Lauri Markkanen, I wouldn't consider a Whale, but he's in that second tier of a type of player that would be beneficial to this team. So, but anyway, Matt, thank you so much for
coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, really appreciate your time, man.
Thank you.
A lot of good insights. Do you want to let the audience know where they can find you? And we'll leave those links in the description.
I'm on Twitter at mph_824_ hothoops.com, 5 Reasons Sports on Watch Playback. Find us on Watch Playback, Vendetta Sports Media, Mountain West. I'm all over the place, writing for a bunch of different sites, doing a bunch of different things for a bunch of different people about a bunch of different topics. But those are some of the stuff. That's some of the stuff that I do. I appreciate y'all having me on. I'm honored to be on here. I'm honored to talk ball with y'all.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. Appreciate it as always.
We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. And Martel, any last words?
Like, share, comment, subscribe.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.